Welcome to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. I am the host, Flux, and I am joined this week by my lovely co-host, Elly.
Davis. Hello.
This week we are talking about the new Inferno difficulty level, some stuff about a demonic uprising in the the Rudolph plots. German tick I have there, sorry. The RMAH issue, the least beautiful thing you've ever not seen, and some other stuff. Getting right to it, so we have lots of topics. What's first, Elly? How about the Rudolph plots demonic uprising?
Yes, the street art.
Which you had a premonition about and failed to make your prediction publicly, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, well, Rush did the news item and we translated it on Google, and I said, oh, that'll probably be that street art stuff they do with the pastels and the chalks. We've seen it before in Edinburgh, and I got a picture of one. There was a sort of fiery chasm with people pretending to fall in. I said, that'll be it. Put that with the news item. He goes, no, I think it'll be like a proper art exhibition with pictures and things on the wall. And of course, next day it turned up and it wasn't. So when he got an MSN from Gamescom, I just sort of sent him the link and said, loser, or something to that effect.
You're waiting until he gets back and you see him after the Gamescom to taunt him properly?
Yeah, probably. But he didn't say anything. He just said, yes, well, I was spot on with that again.
Well, as always, your predictions, just like the Diablo 3 release date, which is going to be absolutely perfect, which is, I believe, 4 days from now at this point.
I think we're going to overshoot that punt, so the less we say about that, the better.
A little late for that. So the event at the Rudolfplatz, which is a public square next to some old medieval architecture, castle-looking building in Cologne, Germany, which is a few miles or kilometers, if you prefer, from the Gamescom Expo, which is ongoing right now, which is where the Inferno information came from. We're going to be touching on later. But they kept saying there's going to be, they said there's not going to be a demonic uprising, kind of teasing it like there's going to be something. And as you said, we were all wondering what that would be, if it was going to be some kind of art, or if they're, obviously there were fans saying beta, 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 like they're going to be passing out beta keys and
in the street,
to tourists in some German, taping it at the bottom of your beer stein or something. But yeah, it was a street painting, and they had those kind of the three-dimensional kind of perspective things, where if you look at it from the correct angle, it appears to be this demon clawing out of the earth, Diablo. And if you look from the side, it appears to be orange and red dog vomit. So it's an interesting review sort of thing. But we had lots of pictures of that, and one of our readers named Stefan was there, and he sent me a cool email about it, mentioning, here I will butcher a German pronunciation of a word that I don't know what it means. But he said, this is quoting his email, Begeisterung, which means enthusiasm. I'm sure I've mangled the pronunciation, so apologies. Anyway, that has become a rare product in this country. So it was typically dry German. He's referring to the, I said, what was the mood like? Whether people there watching, did they know it was Diablo 3? Were they excited? So there was a no excess of Begeisterung.
And that means enthusiasm.
So he says, I might be saying some horrible profanity in German for all I know, but he said he enjoyed it and took a few pictures and stayed there for a little bit, but he moved on and went home.
I thought it was pretty good, but the Diablo character, I thought his arms were a little bit skinny, weren't they?
Yeah, if you saw the comments of the news post about that, we had another outbreak of those. This isn't really Diablo, it's a girl, it's too skinny. Because all of our listeners, I'm sure, have rippling sinews and bulging biceps, and you'd never mistake their pasty sausage finger arms for feminine anatomy. Much like myself, rippling, toned, Conan-esque, you might say.
If you say so.
I just did.
We've only got your word for that.
And if it's on the internet, it must be true. So that was the Rudolfplatz, and the ongoing event is at Gamescom. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. Something carried over from last week, we talked about the real money auction house and how fans would react to that. And we have a current site vote running. Have you been surprised by the results of the vote, Elly?
Having watched that EA slide presentation, how RM trading was received on the announcement of Battlefield Heroes and how it turned out, I'm actually not so surprised now. But before I'd watched that, I would have thought number 5, Hate It, would have probably been the majority. But as it turned out, it wasn't.
Yeah, I was a little bit influenced by that slide presentation, which was by the guy, the director of Battlefield Heroes, which is an EA game. Apparently it's big in Europe. It's sort of a first-person shooter, World War II kind of thing. And they started off just having, you could buy like different skins for your characters, different outfits, make them look like they were karate fighters or something. and they weren't making enough money, and the game was going to be canceled, and they were all going to lose their jobs. So they said, hell with it, let's have a cash item shop, and started selling slightly better items, like more ammo, a little bit more damage. It wasn't like they were selling, it wasn't really pay to win. I mean, at least it wasn't pay to guaranteed win, but it was definitely pay to have a better chance to win. And since then, the game's become very popular and successful, and it's making money, and people seem to like it.
Because at the beginning, when they said that they were going to have items, they didn't. They said that they weren't going to have items that give you an advantage for sale. And so that kind of placated people. And then, of course, they had to do a complete 360 on that, just out of desperation, backed into a corner, really. What can we do? So they just went for it. And it paid off in spades.
They did a 180 on it. 360 back where they started.
Yeah, okay. 360, 180.
Girls don't like math, I realize.
I know.
I already insulted Germans, and I've insulted women. That's almost half the world right now. God forbid there's a German woman listening to this. I'll really be in trouble then.
I know what. Any German listeners, if you want to tell us how to say welcome to the Diablo podcast in German, Flux will introduce the show next week in German. There you go.
Yes, with my flawless accent and pronunciation. Anyway, the real money auction house vote we have going right now, the leading result is 35%, and it's the number 2 option, where it says it's okay, time is money, so long as the money doesn't buy you an insurmountable advantage. And then the next option is number 5, hate it, it shouldn't have any place in the game, and that's 29%. So it's not, it seems like all of our votes are fairly split. Everything gets 30, 35, 40%, and you can kind of make any case you want from the results. We don't seem to have any 85% hate anything sort of results that would be a real referendum on an issue. I'm just amused that 5% have no opinion. It's like, how can you not have an opinion on this? It seems like a pretty big issue in the game. Perhaps maybe those people are just going to play it offline and they don't care about the economy. They're not going to be involved in it.
I don't think so.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
There is no offline. You are involved. There's no escape. So, in other news this week, I posted a picture from the last Blizzard event a couple of weeks ago at Blizzard Irvine of the death screen, which is what you see when you fail in Diablo 3. And you suffer the tremendous and character-altering penalty of about a 1-second delay and 10% loss of your equipment's durability. And I thought that was just kind of a funny screenshot, since the week before I'd posted one I'd called it the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And it was a screenshot, a photo of the login screen, which our readers found delicious.
Everyone did.
Yeah, it got like 100 comments in about an hour. Most of them were just, you could almost see the drool on the monitor. It actually got, I think, as many or more comments because it turned into a whole debate about, well, first of all, it turned into a weird debate about what does the durability comment mean, which I actually was wondering myself in the post because it's not clear from the tooltip in the game. It just says your items lose 10% of durability. And that doesn't make clear if it's your total durability, if it's your maximum durability, if it's their current durability. And my thought was that as noob-friendly as Diablo 3 has been made, that perhaps it would just be their current durability. So say your sword had, 20 out of 50 durability when you died. I thought maybe it would lose 10% of 20, so that would only be a loss of 2. But the commenters almost unanimously said, no, it'll be 10% of the possible max durability. So with the same example, your 50 durability sword would lose 5 durability every time you died. And that's 5 of the available, not the maximum. So if you repaired it, it would go back to being 50-50 as it started out with. So the comment thread took off, and there was lots of debate about the durability thing, although it seems pretty clear what the developers are doing. But I just posted the image because I thought it would be funny for people to see and to look at the death screen. And I wasn't even really attempting to stimulate debate about the feature itself. That said, I think that the death penalties are too light in Diablo 3 and that they don't provide sufficient incentive for people to not play like raving lunatics, except, of course, for hardcore.
Hardcore, yeah. Well, it depends what the 10% durability is. That could be a nasty one, or you might just be able to repair it.
It'll depend on how important gold is.
One comment I saw this morning said that it's off the max durability.
No.
And he's saying, how do you people still not get that it's off the max durability?
Ellie, someone's wrong on the internet.
Never.
To your keyboards. Someone's wrong on the internet. No, nothing in Diablo 3 ever punishes you in any way permanently except for hardcore death. You can respec every skill. You can change around your passives. You can take socketed objects such as runes and gems out of items and skills. Nothing in Diablo 3 ever makes you a permanent choice that you will regret or lose quality for. So I don't think there's any possible even consideration that items would lose anything permanent from death or anything else.
No, I tend to agree.
Well, of course you do, because you're not wrong on the internet. Unlike some people. Can we ban that guy, by the way? Ban.
Ban.
Moving on. Diablo 3 beta, starting tomorrow, right? That's what I heard on the internet.
Absolutely. It's definitely a go tomorrow.
Check your inbox right now. Could be a message there. We were saying for a while that it looked like September-ish, and then comments just yesterday from Gamescom said it's definitely not starting until September, but they hope to get it going in early to mid-September. Are you heartbroken by this development?
I mean, well, we knew by end of September, so I mean, what's 2 weeks? You know, a week, 2 weeks puts you back in the middle of September. So it doesn't make much of a difference, does it? As long as it's before the end of September, because that's what everyone's kind of geared up for now. So it would be disappointing if it slipped beyond that.
What do fans of Blizzard games do best?
Complain.
I was going to say wait, actually, since that's that's what we get to do the most of anyway. So we're getting to do more of what we're best at.
Oh, I said complaints, yes, because I'm moderating the forums all the time, so I get to see the not so wonderful side.
Well, they're complaining because they're waiting, so it's one leads to the other.
But yes, we wait very well, very patiently.
And do you think this is they keep saying, as the beta keeps not starting, we are still hoping for a 2011 release date. Do you think that they're going to admit at some point that's not going to happen, or do you think they can run an 8-week beta and still make it?
I think they'll hold out to the very last minute, but I think there's probably some strong doubts in the home camp about now.
What I've heard from people who have some inside sources, or at least claim to have them, is that the beta will start on or around September 10th, and that Blizzard has everything all planned out. They have all the dates planned out, and they know exactly when it's going to be. And of course, they're not going to tell us when it's going to be until much closer in case, things change. But that they have it all set and they're ready to go then. And that they think they can still, run like a 2-month beta. So it would go, October, end in early to mid-November. And then game can release 4 or 5 weeks later, if they hurry. That would mean best Christmas ever.
Yes.
I can see you're thrilled.
Well, I don't know. I'm still hoping for 11/11/11, of course, but I could be wrong on that. Probably am.
It could be. It's getting a little. That'll be a 2-week beta test.
It's months away, weeks away. They can make it. Come on, guys. I've got a bet on.
I don't really mind if they have a very short beta. I mean, obviously we want the game to be of good quality when it ships, but obviously I would hope to be in the beta fairly early on, but I think I would rather have, like a 2-month, 6-week, 8-week beta and just get the damn game out, so everybody can play it instead of just having this drama for months of people, who's in the beta, can I get a beta key?
Yes, I think it will be the best Christmas ever.
Speaking of Christmas, this is going slightly off of our planned list of topics, which is never stuck to anyway. How about that new monk armor and the new wizard armor we saw in those screenshots from the panel? Speaking of Christmas trees.
God, yeah.
Did they appear to be hung with tinsel?
I do have to say I'm not loving the monk's Inferno look at all.
Yeah, the highest level armor, it was like a fiber optic Christmas tree.
When you look at the monks, it just jars. It doesn't sit well. It's almost as if they know that high level armor has to be sparkly and big and pointy and sort of aggressive looking, but that doesn't go with the monk.
Yeah, my comment was it looks like, like an Indian princess in a Bollywood movie. I mean, it didn't look like armor. It looked like something you'd see in a museum. It's perhaps, like this is armor. Perhaps
it won't look so bad in the isometric view. I mean, we're looking at it front on like you would say in a first person or third person game. Got a bigger impact, but in an isometric view, maybe it won't look as gaudy.
Yeah, that's been their comment about a lot of the armor. If they've shown the various gear sets, people say this looks ridiculous, and Bash checks it looks fine in the game. But as you point out, the developers they want it to look special and shiny, and it has to look different. They want you to be obvious that you've got this really high level armor on. Anyway,
shiny bits are okay. It's the pointy bits I don't really that jar for me with the monk character in particular. Pointy shoulder pads, pointy elbow guards, and
I mean, obviously they're not running a Ren fair here, but I didn't get a whole lot of historical, functional accuracy or believability from this. It just looked like, well, of course it's magical armor. It doesn't have to look like anything. It just works because it's magic. So there you are. A wizard did it. Moving right along. Inferno.
Yeah. So our guess at what it wasn't from last week's podcast turned out to be what it was.
100% accurate, as always.
Because we said, oh, they won't just make it another difficulty level.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Who would play a whole
Yeah.
difficulty level without any experience to gain? I mean, what's the point in that?
So we dismissed that and started to talk about what Inferno could be, and it turned out to be the thing that we dismissed. Only with bells on, I think, has to be said, it is a bit better than just a fourth difficulty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what people have actually suggested a lot for Diablo 2. Ironically, this is what Path of Exile guys told me a year ago when they were first talking about the game. Their initial plan for the highest level of difficulty was to make a completely flat difficulty level where, basically, Act 1 would be just as hard as Act 4, essentially. And so you could get the same kind of items and the same kind of experience. Well, not experience in this case, but you would get the same rewards and the same challenge roughly from anywhere in the game. So, obviously in Diablo 2, everyone just played Act 5 and did, Bale runs or did Pendleskin runs or did the Secret Cow level or whatever, because that was the most rewarding. But if you had gotten, equivalent rewards throughout the entire game, and you really liked Act 2, you could have gone and played in the desert, or you could have gone and played in the jungle of Act 3, etc. So it seems like a really good way. They just have to rebalance the monsters somewhat and make them, equivalent in their rewards and difficulty. And then characters have it at, you've quintupled the possible play areas or sextupled it or some other big word like that.
I think it's a pretty inspired move, actually. I think it's the ultimate in recycling, because ordinarily you'd chop through those early parts and just end up, as you say, in the virtual context of the environment, you'd end up at the end parts of the game, never to return to the first act. So I think this is a great use of all the work that they've put into the earlier levels.
Obviously, the challenge is to make them equivalently difficult, or at least close to that. Because, obviously Act 1 is a lot easier than Act 4. You can't just click up the damage of the monsters because they hit slower, they don't have as much AI, they don't move around, they don't have all the spells, all this kind of stuff. So they've really got to make changes. You can't just have, zombies plodding around at the start of Act 1 and have them be potentially as valuable for items as the really most difficult monsters in the very end of the game. You've got to make the zombies, special.
Do you think this was the plan all along for Endgame, or do you think maybe this was the easiest solution to get the Endgame content in as quickly as possible so they could still make the end of year release date prediction?
Which they're not going to make. Well, it's a good concept. People often suggested it for Diablo 2. I mean, I really enjoyed doing some of the earlier levels for experience and for looking for, they were good to find charms and jewels and other such things. You couldn't find the top level elite, unique items and such. But for instance, until you were like past level 85, you could still get really good experience and items in Act 3 and Act 4. So you could go to the Flayer jungle or something like that if that was what your character was well suited for and didn't want to just go to Act 5 with everybody else.
Yeah, so you might get certain builds playing in specific areas.
Yeah,
that suit their build or their play style.
It seems as though players will discover exploitable areas with this. I mean, it's really hard to balance just the last parts of the game to be fairly difficult and even. And now they've got to balance all four acts and every area in those acts. It just seems like someone will find, there'll be some area in, the start of Act 2 where the monsters, none of them have any lightning resistance or something like that. And then suddenly we'll just see all these sorceresses with tons of lightning spells going to this one area in Inferno and just cleaning house with no difficulty. And Blizzard's got to fix that, obviously, and then that'll open up some other thing. And, there's some area where there's no ranged attackers, so melee characters will love it because they can just tank away or something. It seems like they're really setting themselves, as you say, it's easy in one way. It's probably easier than making whole new levels and whole new content, but it's not a freebie if they're going to make it anything approaching balanced and fair.
They said they're going to rejig and rebalance it to deter people from doing grinding runs. As soon as they discover the first grinding runs, they'll be putting pay to it.
Yeah, and they said they would also have some special monster abilities that might not show up until the late game, and they said they would add additional abilities and maybe add additional monsters. And they also said there might be some boss modifiers, like bosses have lightning enchanted and fire enchanted and, teleporting and such. They might have some special boss modifiers that would only show up in Inferno. And as we know with Diablo, bosses are what you want to kill to get the good items, pretty much. You're very unlikely to get legendaries and sets and such from regular monsters.
Yeah, I think it would be great if they... Sorry to interrupt. Off you go.
No, you're not. Go ahead.
Am I not? Yes, it would be. I think it would be great if they added random boss locations.
Yeah, and also on random bosses. That might be how they could fix the problem with, the difficulty level. Maybe they can't make, just the basic zombies be quite as difficult as they would like, but they can make the zombie boss be really, really tough and have some new modifiers you don't normally get. And since he is where the real profit comes from, that could kind of even things out, I guess. And as you say, more bosses, different bosses. They can certainly change the concentration of monsters. They can have there be more monsters. They can make them spawn faster. They can, change their movement speed and their attack speed. You might just get lots more enemies than you would on, even Nightmare or Hell difficulty. It's going to be fun.
I know the drops are going to be random, but how random are they? I mean, we're not going to be able to get the same items from one mob as we are from another. Forgetting bosses, just going for the normal mobs.
You mean on Inferno?
Yes, sorry, on Inferno.
Well, that's, they obviously haven't shared that level of detail. I mean, they might not even know that level of detail. They have said repeatedly that they're really going to be doing a lot of balancing, especially the high-end balancing post-release, because, they have a lot of testers internally, but, a month after release, there'll be a million level 60 characters pounding away on Inferno. And that's a really big beta test, basically. It's a gamma test or whatever you want to call it. The post-release test. And they just can't predict what will happen with that amount of people playing and finding exploits and sharing information through fan sites much like our own.
Perhaps the drops can be tied to achievements, kind of influenced by which achievements you have to add another level to Inferno.
That's devious.
But Jay did say in that presentation there was room for options and growth, as you say. So they've obviously got plans for it. This isn't its final iteration, is it? They're going to keep tweaking it.
Yeah, and I think they'll probably add some special additional content that's not just a repeat of Acts 1 through 4. I mean, over time, perhaps in the expansion.
Just wanted to say also, although it wasn't pointed out in yesterday's presentation, Jay has said in the past that everything will be soloable. Just to point that out, because I know people have thought because of the nature of Inferno, it is going to be only open to groups, really. One question I had was about the items because they're going to have Inferno only items. Can you buy them on the auction house before you've reached Inferno level?
I would assume that they'll be fully tradable, but they might have character level requirements on them, so you couldn't wear them until you were level 60 anyway.
Okay.
And they've said that they're pretty friendly. They're not really putting many impediments or many obstacles in the way of rushing and turboing and zooming right through the content. If you want to give your lower level characters great gear, or you want to have a friend help you zoom along, they don't really mind. So I don't think they really care. They realize it's a fun thing for players. And if you're getting way ahead of the level curve and you're kicking ass in Nightmare when you're only level 20 or something, then great, have fun.
Not sure about that as far as the long-term plan of the game goes.
I think they probably had like Inferno kind of ideas all along, and they've kind of realized that it's about the end game. We have a new columnist on the website who just started last week. He's going by the name of Xantz, or possibly Antasa.
I think it's the first one.
Perhaps he's German. My German pronunciations are, as you know, exquisite. Is exquisite. Anyway, his first column was last Friday, and he's going weekly. So by the time you listen to this podcast, there will be another one available on the DiabloIncGamers.com, and I'm sure it'll be wonderful. You've been listening to the Diablo Podcast. This is online at DiabloPodcast.com. Bye.
Goodbye.